What is an embarrassing moment that still haunts you? I have a few, but the worst, as I've said on here before, was when a colleague gave me a lift home from work as my wife was busy. When he dropped me off, I went into wife dropping me off default mode, and leaned in for a goodbye kiss. Luckily for me, he wasn't looking and either didn't notice, or had an existential crisis and never mentioned it. The walk to my front door was spent bemoaning the fact I had been born. You know that half asleep brain mode where you kind of wake up but don't fully comprehend where you are. So at age 12 or so I woke up in the middle of the night with an upset stomach. I've got to fart. Whatever, I'm in my room. About 3 seconds into the longest fart of my life I remember that I'm not at home. I'm in the auditorium for some youth group sleepover thing. It's really ducking late. I hear quiet snores. Nobody around me moves, so I think God might actually be real and looking out for me. Then, from across the gym, I hear a girl yell, "Yo, what the duck?" I was running late one morning my junior year of high school and I had just missed the bus, but I had hoped if I ran after it maybe it would stop, so I started running. I got right alongside it, but my backpack was too heavy and I fell face first onto the road. I could hear everyone laughing, so I just lay there, pretended to be unconscious. Eventually I heard the bus leave and I got up and ran away, hid behind a neighbor's car. About a minute later the bus driver and 2 football players came running around the corner. Apparently the bus driver moved the bus to the field behind the neighborhood and they were going to come help me. But I was gone. I refused to get on the bus again. Fortunately I had already had my driver's license and a couple weeks later I got my first car, so it wasn't a problem. I was super drunk at a bar once and when 2 girls walked by I said "Lady IEs." And I meant it. Shivers. I worked at a museum as a young man and my job included talking to school groups before they went in. I had to speak in front of a group of older girls, close to my age, and I was hella nervous. I went to an all-boys school. I got through my talk all right, but when I went to walk out the side, I bumped into a banner, which I promptly apologized to. "Oh, sorry." I was at a water park with family and towards the end of the afternoon, a woman came up to me and whispered in my ear that I have a problem with my swimsuit. I reached behind and noticed a huge gap. The fabric was torn right in the middle and you could see my ass crack. I was running around like this all day and no one said anything. I was pretty drunk at a bar when I approached 2 women sitting by themselves. I then proceeded to say, "What are 2 fine ladies like you doing all alone on Thanksgiving?" It was Valentine's Day. I was a freshman in high school, was a fat kid and thus wasn't very good at navigating new social areas. I met a girl, thought she was really pretty and had cool tastes in music and movies, so I went up and tried to introduce myself and talk to her on the buzz. Nothing terribly bad or awkward happened. I just introduced myself and said I thought she seemed really cool. She seemed confused, and I took that as a clue that I was barking up the wrong tree and left her alone. A few days later, I overheard a girl in one of my classes mention her, and that some creepy fat guy was stalking her on the bus. Naturally, I was mortified, and didn't talk to many girls for a long time after that. I got a lot better with socialization and more comfortable with meeting new people, but I'll never forget how terrible it felt to be called a creep after a single exchange of introducing myself and telling her I thought she had really interesting tastes. I'd never had someone spread a rumor about me before, and I still remember it clear as day. I had a full-on conversation with somebody and then I saw him bring his phone down from his ear. Overheard a guy singing Sweet Cherry Pie with a ciggy in one hand in the restroom. He didn't realize if anyone was there. He walks out and sees me having a nice laugh. 10 minutes later I'm giving presentation to him and his associates. Turns out he was the client who was looking forward to meeting the team behind the project that we were doing for his company. He is still our client 4 years later. For background, I went to a school with 95% Asian kids, and it was common for a good amount of the student population to be ESL, English Second Language, students. However, I was not one of these students, and my classmates all knew I wasn't. In English class, the teacher had asked if anyone knew what being under duress meant, and I had misheard her, thinking she had asked what the term underdressed meant. So I confidently raised my hand, which I hardly do cause I don't like answering questions, and said it means that that person is not dressed for the occasion. Everyone in the class looked at me, kind of processing what I had just said, and then the teacher realizes me mistake and says, "Oh no sweetie, that's underdressed. I'm asking about what it means to be under duress." This is when I realized I messed up. So the whole class has a nice giggle, and she says it's okay. I know English is a hard language to learn, and the class laughs even louder as they realize the teacher had just assumed I was an ESL student. I was mortified. The most embarrassing moment resulted on a weekend that I was organist for 3 weddings and 2 funerals, starting Friday evening into Saturday. At one point, when the priest gave the signal to begin, I lost my concentration and started playing a funeral processional for music as the bride came down the aisle, instead of the wedding march. When I was 11, a kid pantsed me when I was on the monkey bars and all the girls were watching. But he got the underwear too. Would not have mattered that much, but one girl teased me about it constantly for 5 years till we went away to different high schools. Tuck you Kelly for making my adolescent life hell. Gotta be falling off my bicycle at 15 while trying to impress a group of girls. Caught my aunt masturbating in the living room and again in her room. This one may be a bit too morbid, but when my friend was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was likely going to die in a number of weeks, my other friend was, reasonably, distraught. And falling into that autopilot thing, I hugged her and said it'll be okay. She angrily responded, "No, it's not going to be okay. This clearly isn't going to be okay." And I just felt like a complete idiot. I still feel awful about it now. I wish I knew what to say in moments like that. You'd think, after 2 of my friends dying, I'd have some practice by now. A few years back, I was sitting in the bus on my way home, when I saw this woman waving at me, so I instinctively start waving back and smiling, thinking it might be someone I know. Then she stops and stares at me like I'm some kind of moron. I look behind me and realize she was waving at the woman sitting behind me. I've got bad eyesight, and I didn't have my glasses on. True story. I worked for a Sprint PCS store back in the day, and went to a big golf tournament with some pretty big names for a marketing event. Mind you, at the time, I knew absolutely nothing about golf. So I'm working this kiosk when my boss shows up telling me to go take a break. Bored of sitting around most of the morning, he didn't have to tell me twice. I decide to walk around the event along the perimeter of green, checking out the scene, and it's super packed with people watching the pros or whatever do their thing. Did I just rib 3 times here? Unintentional, anyways. I'm so deep in thought, eyes distant while walking around, that I barely started to notice this commotion as I'm walking along the radius of this roped off area. And that's when I noticed this little white ball come rolling over to me under the rope barrier. So, I did what any polite human would do. I picked it up, and threw it back in the roped off area. Have you ever had 8,000 people simultaneously yell everything in the world at you? I went back and hid behind the kiosk for the rest of the event, and to this day have still never played a round of golf. One time I was renting a room in my boss's/friend's house. It was snowing pretty bad one morning. My boss/friend was at work. I had on a pair of boxers and that's it. I went to the front door to go outside and get the paper. I stepped out to get it and the door shut and locked behind me. I was stuck in a snowstorm with boxers on. I had to knock on the neighbor's door and explain the situation. This was back in 1st grade. I accidentally spilled some pee on my pants, so I, being a rather hygienic person, took off my pants and went back to class. They gave me a free skirt toe. Didn't eat fast food growing up. Went to Subway with friends a couple times in my early 20s but didn't order. Seemed confusing and intimidating. Began studying ordering techniques of friends so maybe I could try it someday. Day comes where I'm ready to take the next step. Have my order memorized. I knock down my request segment by segment, like I'm reciting a script I'd been up all night rehearsing. Foot long. Ham. White. Swiss cheese. Lettuce and tomato. Pretty excited because I'd nailed it. I stand idly by with my hands casually behind my back, lips optimistically pursed, trying to play it cool so everyone else could be fooled into thinking I'm a perfectly regular human being who'd totally ordered a sandwich before. Subway worker throws me a curveball. Is this going to be a meal? Not completely sure why he wants to know if it's going to be my entire dinner or not. Sort of thought he may have been inviting himself over or something. Just felt like really odd small talk to make. I become panicked and non-committal on the inside, still totally cool on the outside. I pause to contemplate for a moment, then I say, I don't know, we'll see. Worker freezes. Friend freezes. I'm still up on my toes, hands behind my back, casually staring ahead waiting to pay for my sandwich. Feels like an hour goes by but a couple moments of silence pass before it's explained to me that a meal in this case means a sandwich, chips, and a drink. Friend never wants to be seen in public with me again. When I was 12 I had just watched a movie about a werewolf teen and I thought it was the coolest thing, so I used to have a girlfriend that was also 12 but we had broken up a couple of days prior to what I'm about to tell you. One day our group of friends got invited to my ex's cousin's birthday party and I was thinking of the way I could call her attention. It was 7 p.m. and the sun had went completely down and there was a full moon. You probably see where this is going now. I got to the building's lobby where all of my friends were waiting for everyone to show up, and when I walked through the door I just stood there looking at her and everyone was just staring at me. I started making a growling sound and showing my teeth as if I was becoming a werewolf and took off running. A few minutes later I showed up to the party and literally no one asked me what happened, so I had to bring it up out of nowhere acting as if I was nervous and told her yeah so sorry my grandma wanted something and I forgot and I just got ignored. I'm 19 now and that still haunts me. In high school, I was laughing and I covered my nose to try to get me to stop. It didn't end well. I blew snot everywhere. My classmates called me Snots the rest of the year.